let's take a look at my tray setup. So first off, I have my green soap, so it's easy for me to clean, especially once you get ink everywhere. Sometimes you can kind of lose your spots, so I do really like having a bit of green soap on hand. Second, alcohol. I do have Bactine on my tray, only if people are really super sensitive, but I tend to not use this. Of course, gloves and masks. I have 2 needle cartridges that I almost always use for stretch mark camouflage, and that is a 7 curved magnum and a 5 round shader. I have my rotary tattoo machine, some cotton swabs, ink caps. I tend to like these bigger ones for these areas just so that you're constantly not having to mix more ink. Vaseline to stick my cups on, and then of course the mixer, which is so important so that all of those colors you're putting together are really well mixed up. Okay, now the fun part, the color matching. And it's fun for me. I know it's probably a little bit of a struggle to start with, but bear with me here. I have completely simplified this for you guys. So what I've done is I've taken my color swatches that I've pre-made, and that recipe and all those are broken down into my course. So I've found a color match that I think is pretty close. So I've mixed that up and then I've swatched it on paper towel. So you can see I'm gonna hold this up to her skin, and it's not bad, but it seems a little bit dark for me. And that's how I'm gonna determine is I wanna get that match to her skin color. So I'm gonna go back and change my formula a little bit to lighten this, and then circle back here and make sure I have the right formula. Okay, so I've lightened up my formula and I've started fresh. This is really important that you don't just keep mixing this concoction of different colors, because you're not gonna know what you've done. And if you need to create more, it's gonna be next to impossible. So I've lightened this formula up and you can see it's just a perfect match for her skin. So I'm happy with how that looks. Okay, when in doubt, you guys, it's always safer to go a tiny bit lighter, because if this is too dark and she comes back, it's very difficult to correct. So again, just be on the lighter side. Really important things when you're matching colors is to identify the Fitzpatrick and their undertones. So if they're really pink, if they're really yellow, because that's gonna help you dictate where you go to. So in my broken down recipes, that's gonna help guide you. But if this is looking too yellow or too pink, that's gonna really stand out. So you wanna make sure when you're matching that those colors all seamlessly look beautiful together. So we're gonna get started. I've wrapped my machine up, and because of the size of these stretch marks, and by size, I mean the width of them, I'm gonna use a 7 curved magnum. So if they were a little bit thinner, I might jump down a cartridge size to the 5 round shader, but for today, we're gonna go with the 7 curved mag. All right, so I'm just gonna adjust my needle length here. For these stretch marks, I'm gonna be about 1 to 1.5 millimeters out is gonna be my needle hang. And if I find she's just getting a little bit too red or there's any pinprick bleeding, I'll kind of just pull those back a little bit. And then my speed, I'm gonna start at a 6. So that's a 6 volt. All right, I'm gonna clean the area up with some alcohol. Fabulous. Now, Next up, we're gonna do some color matching. So in my course, I show you a super easy breakdown of how you're gonna match this, because I think color matching is the tricky part and it's always what people struggle with. So I've broken it down into about 5 or 6 really easy colors, and then you're gonna mix them up. I've put down all the recipes for you so you can just go ahead and start matching. Okay, so you want to have a good grip on the skin. You don't need to pull really super tight, but enough that the skin is smooth. Okay, so I'm gonna pick up some of my color and just do a pass to make sure that that looks like it's going in really nice. And that stretch mark should start to disappear immediately for you. So working slowly and on an angle is going to help you distribute color evenly and without causing a lot of trauma to the skin. After we're done, it is going to be red and swollen. And that is how it should look. Now I'm using a circular motion to deposit this color. You can definitely try different techniques as far as depositing the color. So you can push and pull, you can do a little bit of a pendulum. I find this works really well and you get good coverage. So I still have that 3-point stretch. And I'm just gonna check in with my client as to how her sensitivity is. I'm getting a thumbs up. Her and I chatted about using numbing before, and I said, you know, if you're nervous, because this is her first tattoo, that we can add freezing to it. So we know that's a backup, and it's kind of nice to just let them know that that's available to them. Now I like to keep my color very tight into the stretch mark, but when it's a perfect match like this, if it goes over just a little bit, it's not a big deal. So when I'm working, I usually just kind of pick an area to start, make sure I've completed it, and just move. I like to work in sections so you can really make sure you have everything covered. And also moving around your client just to check the light, because I find sometimes stretch marks can kind of disappear on you in different lights. So I like to just move around when I'm done to make sure I haven't missed anything. So this set of stretch marks is just on her hip, well, both hips, and this area is gonna probably take me about 20 minutes to complete. One of the longest things is just gonna be color matching, to be honest. So in our consultation, I talked about breaking down the cost. I like to charge per area or per my time. So those are the two options I like to suggest. So for this area of the hips, I would start at about $400 for both. And the number of appointments is probably gonna be 2, I'm guessing, just by how great these stretch marks look. They're just taking the color in really nice. Her skin is smooth. I mean, she's a beautiful model for stretch marks. Now, the one thing I don't suggest doing is going side to side. You're gonna get a super thick concentration of ink and it is not going to look natural. So you're gonna wanna stick with more circular push and pull motion, or even if they're really tiny and it's hard to get into, you can stipple, but not go back side to side like that. How you doing there, girl? Good. Good, okay. So one of the big questions, I literally answer this constantly, is what happens when you tan, when you've had ink camouflage on stretch marks? And the answer is simple. The ink is never going to tan because A, the stretch mark is a scar, and B, we're tattooing ink into it. So there's no means for that to have the ability to tan anymore. So her surrounding skin will tan, but any of the stretch marks that have been tattooed will not. So there will be a slight inconsistency when she has a tan, and then when her tan fades, it just goes back to that perfect match again. The other thing I get asked a lot is how many passes. I like to try and get it done in 1 or 2, just because you don't want to irritate that area too much. And you can see the only thing we're really getting is redness from this, and that's about the max that you'll want to see. So people ask, is this permanent? The short answer is yes. The long answer is once in a while there may be people who do need touch-ups that have faded out. Maybe they are in the sun all the time, or their skin has just really metabolized the ink. I don't see it very often, so I like to say it is a permanent service. One of the important things when you're color mixing is to not have your colors too concentrated. You need them diluted so it mimics the skin. If it's too concentrated, it looks opaque. We need it to be more of that watercolor effect into the area, so it shows that translucency through it, just like we get with skin. I mean, you can see veins and different little freckles, and if you've got too much saturated ink, that's gonna pop and make this whole thing look fake. So if someone has new stretch marks, and the reason you'll know that is because they're red, they are not ready for this camouflage or anything in general when it comes to modifying these areas. So typically about a year, or when the stretch mark is not red anymore. Now, if the stretch mark is hyper pigmented, those are ones you want to stay away from because it's challenging to get them to lighten. And of course, we want to give the client the best result possible, and it's so important not to overpromise and then underdeliver. So we're still doing circular shading here, friends. I'll show you what a different style looks like. More of that push and pull, and I could definitely do that right in there because I have the width to get in there to do that. Now sometimes I'll just go over quickly if I see a tiny bit of light left. I don't want to get it too saturated, but you can lightly just wisp over something like this, especially if it's not too white. You just need a tiny little baby bit. This is also a good way. So this is almost like a half a pendulum stroke. So if some of these techniques that I'm talking about, pushing, pulling, pendulum, is confusing or you're not 100% sure what I'm talking about, I did an amazing collaboration with Shay Danielle just to help you guys out so that you do know all the terminology, and when you're taking additional trainings, you don't get stumped on what your teacher is telling you. I find a lot of PMUs are intimidated by mag needles, especially if you're a nano brow artist or a microblader. Those might just seem really big and scary, but they're actually amazing and they allow you to work so fast. So in our course, you get to see them used in many different procedures, and I found that to be so helpful. I wish that was available when I was first starting out. So we're on the home stretch here. My client said it's been easy. Some parts have a little bit of spice to them, but even for those people who have never been tattooed, it's not anything to be worried or stressed about. So this swelling and redness that you're seeing here, perfectly normal. That's exactly how every stretch mark camouflage case will look once you're done, no exceptions. So when the client is healing, they can expect this area to feel dry and flaky and to start with almost like a sunburn. That would be the maximum discomfort that they would experience. With their aftercare, keeping it moisturized is going to just soothe that area. And this takes about 7 to 10 days to heal. And you don't want to see this client back before 6 weeks. I like to see photos and just judge if they have had any hyperpigmentation or if the color looks really good and settled, then they can come back in that 6 to 8 week mark. So our model today was actually a client of ours who had eyebrows done. And in conversation, she had mentioned that she was really self-conscious about these stretch marks that she had left from childbirth. So we had mentioned that we do this type of camouflage, and she then became our client. It is a really easy transition to find clients for paramedical tattooing that are already clients of yours. So on social media, I'm sure you guys are aware that a lot of these stretch mark camouflages are getting really popular and almost constantly viral on TikTok. If you haven't seen this, you'll have to check it out. You'll be blown away by how many people have such amazing results, and this is such a popular service for them. All right, we are done the one side. On my next model, we're doing super subtle baby stretch marks. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because we're gonna use a different needle cartridge. And I just wanna show you how to mark up so you can be super precise on getting little tiny details in. Okay, so what I've done is marked out these little baby stretch marks that I have so that I can see exactly where I need to go, because these are super subtle, but I still want to make sure that I've got all of them. So we're basically looking at those ones right there. Okay, on to color matching. So what I've done is I've made a formula with the colors that I've broken down for you on your cheat sheets. So I got this on the first try, but what might happen is you might get these little paper towel swatches, which I just cut up before, and you might have a couple different ones. So once you get the one that you think is a really good match, I usually just chart the formula that I've put here so I don't get confused if I have multiple little swatches like this. Now, just a note, if you guys are feeling overwhelmed with the color matching, which I do hear artists can feel, especially if you're new to the whole paramedical tattoo game, I really encourage you to give inkless stretch mark revision a go. So you don't need to be doing this color matching, but you will use the techniques that I'm showing you today to get an amazing result without the stress of color or even adding the extra supplies to your kit. So next question you're probably thinking is, well, what's the difference? Why would I use ink versus inkless? So when I'm using ink, you're likely done in 1 or 2 treatments, and the color is in there forever. Now with inkless, you can get very similar results, but it's going to take usually double the amount of treatment. So it's a little bit more of a commitment from you and your client, but a really great way to get started in paramedical tattooing. Now, the results from the inkless are also permanent, providing they don't have any massive weight gain or weight loss. So one of the things that I have done to get literally perfect results is I'll start with inkless, and then I can tell in a treatment or two I'm maybe got the results I need and I don't need to do anything else. Or I sometimes have some residual stretch marks left, and that's when I'll go in with the camouflage. So sometimes it can be a balance of both, which is why having the knowledge of both inkless and camouflage goes so hand in hand. But truly, getting started on inkless is the easiest and simple way to add this into your business right away. The course cost would be covered in just one treatment. Okay, so I have my needles out about 1.5 mils. All right, here we go. So that 3-point stretch. And do you see how specific and direct I can be with this smaller cartridge? And sometimes you have a mixed bag of this size of a stretch mark, and by size I mean width. And then you might have some wider ones as well. So if they're wider, this is gonna take you too long and it might be just a little bit too aggressive. So that's when you're gonna wanna start with your 7 curved mag. So this is a 5 round shader that I'm using right now. And again, you guys just need to work slow, and you really don't need to do more than 1 or 2 passes, and you're not, tearing up the skin or causing any damage. And if you fill your cartridge up with too much ink, it's just going to blob down on her skin and you're gonna have a hard time seeing where you're going. So make sure you just don't overfill your cartridge there. So it means you'll dip a little bit more frequently, but it's a better result in the end here. So I have a little bit too much there. So for this skinnier style stretch mark, I'm gonna be using mostly a circular because they're so baby, I can just do exactly what I need to do. A bigger needle cartridge would be overkill. So my model's skin is a little bit more sensitive, so getting more redness like that is normal. You're not overworking the skin. The higher the Fitzpatrick, usually the less irritated they are to start with, but the end result will be the same, that red swollen area over where you've worked. So with color matching, again, if you guys are feeling like unsure of your match, like, do I have the right one? Always go a little bit lighter because you can get more intensity on their touch-up if need be. Usually touch-ups for camouflage with ink on stretch marks, I usually see them twice. And then with inkless stretch mark revision, a lot of times you can see incredible results in just 2 treatments. And others, may take 3 or 4, but I've never had a case that I've done more than 4 on.
How you doing there, Ariel?
Good. So Ariel is actually a client of ours at Cinnamon Girl Clinic. Again, a perfect transition to paramedical tattooing. Now, Ariel, tell us why you wanted to get your stretch marks camouflaged.
So I've gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, lost weight. I've had 3 kids. And although it's in an area where it may not be seen by everybody, it's a constant reminder. So, I've been to Jody's clinic and I absolutely love it here. And, it's a sensitive area. So I wanted to find somebody where I was very comfortable with. So this is just a phenomenal opportunity for me to hide something that's been bothering me for quite a few years.
Oh, that's so awesome. I mean, a lot of this stuff I think you don't know until you know, right? Which is why it's so important to just educate and talk about your services that you have as a business.
100%.
How is the sensitivity with this? Like out of 10 being the worst, how does this feel?
I give it like a 4, not even.
All right, perfect. So Ariel, as far as aftercare goes, we're gonna have you use basically just a super clean, easy, breezy moisturizer like Aquaphor. And you can pop that on a couple days. They're gonna feel dry and itchy and they will flake a little bit. They're gonna look like they've been sunburnt and then that sunburn will kind of flake off as it does in a real sunburnt scenario. And just important to not pick is the main thing. So your healing for these are gonna take probably in about 7 to 10 days, you'll notice a really big difference. And I love for people to send me progress pics, usually in like 2 weeks. And we can assess if you actually need another appointment because sometimes people are basically perfect after one.
So what about things like working out or swimming, hot showers? Should I avoid any?
Yeah, great question. So while these are healing, nothing super sweaty like hot yoga or doing a really hardcore cardio workout. We want to just keep it clean, relatively dry. Walking weights, those kinds of stuff, those kinds of things are fine. And then showering, you can have a shower tomorrow. Just don't do any scrubbing in the area. And I like to try and avoid like the shower coming right on the area, which isn't really a concern for this.
Right. Thank you.
So as I'm just finishing up, you guys, if I see anything, I don't necessarily need to go in a circular motion, but I can just sort of whip through that area that's really thin, that doesn't even fit a circular motion. And that's a nice way to just finish up and make sure you have all the little baby details. Okay. Okay, we're done.